So tonight will be a night of introductions, and we can begin with a little practice and let you know what the format is and so on like that. I never mind being interrupted, so if you have questions as we're moving along, just turn your microphone on and speak up, or raise your electronic hand in your box. You can do that. You can raise your hand, or just raise your hand on the screen, and I usually see that. So if you have any comments or questions while we're talking, don't hesitate to let us know. So my name is Lance David. My last name is Bergerson, and my Dharma name is Konchog Pema Dorje. So I'll respond to any of those names. And I've been doing these teachings on Buddhism 101 for about 25 years. So we've been using the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, this particular book. I think if you've all gotten the flyer, received the flyer, there was some information on there about the book. If you need more detail, let me know. I also want to send you this outline that I put together, which is a chapter by chapter outline of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation. So it's very helpful to have this outline, and so if you want it, send me your mailing address, and I'll be happy to send it to you along with some other things. So another thing that we have is a daily prayer book. I can send you this. It's a prayer book and practice book, and we will be referring to this on a regular basis. So having a printed copy of this is very useful to have. So I'd like to send that to you too. So there's a couple of reasons to send me your shipping address so I can get that off to you. A few of you already have that. I know Alea has it, and Kunga has that, and Zara has that. I put it in the mail for Kevin. He should be receiving it. If he didn't get it today, maybe tomorrow. You should be able to receive that mail. Um, at this time, can I just ask everybody to give a very brief introduction of your name and where you live, and maybe state what your motivation is for joining a group like this, so that we can this way we can get to know each other a little bit. So, with no particular order except the one that's on my screen, I'm going to ask Kunganima if he'll start and introduce himself, please.
Thanks, Pema Dorje. My name is Kunganima Drodis. Kunganima is my Dharma name, and like a year after I got my Dharma name, I changed my name to my Dharma name, so now that's my only name. I've been practicing with Pema Dorje for a couple years now, and when I joined, he had completed discussing the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, or was close to completing with it, and so mostly my practice with him has been studying other texts. So I was excited to hear this text come back around and get an opportunity to delve into that. I live in St. Joe, Michigan, and I don't know. It's good.
All right, thank you. Alea, could you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Aaliyah. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland, so right outside DC. And I was actually introduced to you, Lance, through Zara, who's also on the call. She's kind of like my Dharma sister in a lot of ways. After I did yoga teacher training, I went into a holistic medicine program that was based in Asheville, North Carolina. And interestingly, she was actually renting an Airbnb to nurses and didn't know I was a nurse. It was just through the school that I happened to find out about her and contacted her, and I never saw her, just communicated with her on the phone. And I stayed at her beautiful Airbnb. She actually has like two of them in Asheville, and they were really amazing and wonderful. And I was able to go to school and be in person, and got to check out Asheville, and we stayed in contact ever since then. Zara is originally from Virginia, so whenever she comes up here to visit her family, we'll hang out and connect. And one time we did all go out to lunch with Lance, which was really nice too. So yeah, so Zara is my connection to everyone to this, and she's been studying with Lance for quite some time, and she got me involved, I think 3 years ago now, and I just really didn't have the time or space to continue studying, so I decided to just kind of back and then bring some friends in as well. So thank you, Zara.
Hi. I'm here. I just got off work. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to transition out of my work tags. I apologize, everyone. I'm so sorry.
All right, well, we'll circle back to Zara in just a minute, so I'll give you a chance to get situated. So, Diana, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Diana. Having some
Oh, you gotta turn your microphone back on.
Okay, there's an echo.
Oh, but you got a terrible echo. Can you close your computer screen, the one that we were having trouble with, and leave?
Yeah, let me shut that down.
Shut that down. And then we can get your Zoom connection straightened out during the week or another time.
Is this better now?
Yes.
Okay. Oops. Okay, so can you hear me now?
Yes, you're fine.
Sorry, thank you. So my name's Diana. I'm a nurse as well, and I work with Aaliyah. And I live in Gaithersburg, Maryland. I don't really have any experience with Buddhism at all, so I'm excited to learn about it.
Where do you live?
I live in Gaithersburg, Maryland.
Oh, you're in Gaithersburg. Okay.
In North Potomac.
Oh, okay, very good. Okay. Have you ever been in North Potomac? Have you ever been to the KPC, the Buddhist temple that's there on I can't think of the name of the road now.
No, I have not.
It's off of River Road, right?
It's off of River Road, yes.
It's off River Road. I've been there before, Lance. It's really nice.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of the road, but nevertheless, there's a big temple that's been there for a long time.
Oh, no, I have not been there.
Yeah, so we can talk about that later on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kevin, will you introduce yourself, please? And if you can turn your camera on, we'd love to see you.
Sure. It's just that my makeup has been, lost somewhere, and I can't find it to put it on. No, I had a surgery, and my mouth is kind of still in a healing phase.
Oh, okay.
But you will see me at some point. I promise you that. You might even see me in person.
All right.
So
well,
you get an extra bonus. You get an extra bonus.
All right, great.
First of all, thank you, Lance, for putting this together. Thanks. It's really nice to virtually meet everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. I'm really excited to learn more about what Buddhism has to offer and what it is from an organized perspective. I've practiced it on my own in the past, but nothing that's been more organized. I just did YouTube and read books and talked to people, and that's how I went ahead doing my own form of practice. As you know, my name is Kevin Muhammad. I live in Washington, D.C. I was heavily solicited by Aaliyah in return for baked cooked goods, particularly cookies and cakes, so if you guys haven't been filled in on that, you should. She's a great baker and a phenomenal cook as well. So I've known Aaliyah for over 25 years. Wow. So we are both very young, and I am excited to be here, and I'm really looking forward more so to creating my Dharma name. That's my passion for tonight. I'm really excited to learn more about the Dharma and a name and how I can create one for myself. So I'm excited to be rebaptized. Thanks, and I look forward to the programs ahead.
Very good. Thank you very much. Nicholas just joined us. Thank you very much, Nicholas. We're going through introductions right now, so I'm going to ask Zara if she can introduce herself, and then we'll come back to Nicholas. So,
Okay,
Zara,
thank you.
Hey everyone. Hi, Nick, Aaliyah, Diana, Evan, Lance, Kunga. I'm so happy that you're here. Diana, thank you for introductions. I'm Zara, and I think everyone's a mutual touch point for everyone tonight is Aaliyah, which is a blessing for us. And I've been with Lance now since I think 2020, studying. I came through a friend, a connection point from college, and just randomly introduced me to Lance. And during COVID, started doing his Zoom sessions. And I've been able to have the privilege to take this particular introductory sequence a few times with him, which the repetition has helped just solidify some of those core terms and the intellectual concepts in Buddhism that have now led me onto a very firm path of devotion and practice and experience. So I'm just so grateful. So I've been practicing the Dharma, like as the little d, meaning my lifestyle, and the big Dharma, meaning like the scriptures and sutras, for the last 5 years. And I consider Lance to be my spiritual teacher, if you will, and guide at this point on my path. I'm about 5-6 years in, and as witness and testimony to everyone here, my life is exponentially and profoundly enriched and better for being on the Dharma. Everything has just gotten easier in life and lighter and brighter. So I'm grateful to have you all now as part of a Sangha spiritual community, and with Lance at our captain's wheel. So thank you. And Kunga, I'm so happy to see you here too. Thank you. I'm always so happy to see Kunga. You guys, he drops in his wisdom. Kunga's awesome. So thank you all.
thank you. Thank you, Zara. And Kunga, by the way, is up in Michigan, and he's part of a group up there, a Sangha group up there, that he's been leading and practicing for many years. So Kunga is a really good spiritual friend. So
Is this better
right.
now?
Yes. Who was saying that? Diana? Who said that? Is this better now?
I don't
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well then, when we get started like this, there's a few hiccups every now and then with the technology and so on. So until we all get used to it, we just have to grin and bear when crazy things happen with the Zoom and so on. So, Nicholas, could you please take a minute and introduce yourself, where you live, and what your motivation is, and so on like that?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Nicholas, and I'm well, first, I'm also from Michigan.
Oh,
I received an email about this through the Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple, which I am assuming that Kunga is a part of. And yes. So I've just started attending there in the last few weeks. And since, my motivation for this is to learn more about the Dharma, learn more about myself, so that I can be living closer to my essence for everybody who is around me. I believe that if I'm living close to my essence and and letting that shine through, not being in my mind so much, but really letting that live through me, then that can have a profound impact on the lives of others. And so this is part of why I am here. And I do have some family plans tonight, so I'm going to be in and out, but I didn't want to miss this first meeting tonight. So thank you for receiving me and hearing me.
Thank you very much for joining us. And so I'll just take this opportunity to say, that we will be recording these sessions and we'll be putting them up on our YouTube channel, and we'll send it to your email. And if you subscribe to the channel, then you will get the updates of the new sessions as they are posted. So if you'll subscribe, it will be very helpful to everybody. Plus, if you all can send me your phone numbers and your contact, your mailing address, because I do, as I said before a few minutes ago, I want to be able to send you a couple of booklets that we made that I think you'll really enjoy having, and that we will be referring to with all these sessions that we do and so on. So if you can send that, so it's Buddha Practice Study at gmail.com is our address. So you all should have a flyer, a copy of the flyer that I've sent out several times and so on. So our contact information is there, I think. If you have any questions, you can reach us at buddhapracticestudy@gmail.com. I just said that. So you can do that. What we're going to learn, what we're going to be investigating is really the vocabulary of what the Dharma is. So it's a language that has come out of ancient India. It's all based in Sanskrit. And so there are lots of Sanskrit words that are very comprehensive and concise that, you might take an English paragraph to try and translate. But once we get to know the ideas that are being expressed by the Sanskrit words and what the Sanskrit words themselves are, you'll become more and more familiar with what is going on. The Dharma teachings, somebody mentioned that the Dharma teachings, when we talk about Dharma with a capital D, the word Dharma with a capital D, is actually the literal teachings of the Buddha. Is his expression, his being able to communicate to everybody, to us, and for the past 2,600 years, what his path was to be able to become enlightened, to be able to become liberated from suffering. So we're going to go and we're going to talk a lot about suffering. We're going to talk a lot about liberation and enlightenment and so on like that. So our teachings are like a big circle, and we keep coming round to things, and at some point things kind of bump up in the circle, and like a spiral, it becomes a little bit more concise and so on. But to be able to repeat things is very, very important, because it reinforces what it is that we're learning and how it is that we become the embodiment of those things. So vocabulary is a very important feature of this. In the Jewel Ornament of Liberation, in the back of the book, there is a glossary. And most all of these type of Dharma books have glossaries in them that are really, really helpful. So as you go through this, and maybe you begin to accumulate a few of these books, looking at the table of contents, looking at the indexes in the back, and looking at the glossaries that are usually in the back will be very, very, very helpful to you. They are reference books and so on. So what we're learning are the stages of the path. That we are on a path to be able to recognize ourselves as having Buddha nature, awakened nature. Buddha is a Sanskrit word that means awakened one, the awakened one. And everyone, all beings, all sentient beings, have that potential to be awakened. They have that essence of Buddha, what we say Buddha, to be awakened. But what's happened is that essence has gotten blocked up. It's gotten confused with our emotions and our misconceptions and so on like that. And what our job is to do to purify by removing those obstacles, removing those blockages, those things that cover it up. So there's many analogies. We use a lot of analogies and similes. So it's like if our essence is like this indestructible diamond, and it's got many, many facets on it, and it's at our heart center. It's not the fleshy heart, but it's at the heart center. And we've had this since the moment we were conceived, when the father and the sperm and the egg of the mother came together with that spirit. Then the three came together and began to grow as a sentient being, as a human being, and so on. And we say that that life force that we have is like this indestructible diamond. But if that diamond is covered up through our confusions, through our afflictive emotions, through our misconceptions and so on, we don't have the benefit of what that true nature is. So our job is to identify those blockages, the causes of those blockages, and to learn how to remove those blockages, to allow the light that comes from this diamond to be able to shine forth and be able to bring us wisdom, bring us the ability to be able to practice and become the embodiment of this true nature. So we talk about the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha is the mind of the Buddha. We're talking about the heart mind of the Buddha, the heart mind. This is the brain mind. And so this heart mind is this indestructible diamond analogy I was showing you, is that heart mind. But then our intellectual mind needs to be able to come into union with that heart mind. So our brain mind and our heart mind coming together. And this is what we're working on in the process of doing this, is the Dharma practice. That's the capital D, Dharma. So it's like a pathway to enlightenment, a pathway to liberation from suffering is the Dharma, where we learn the causes of our suffering, what it is, what the sufferings are made of, how to identify them, and so on, and how to be able to apply the antidotes to those sufferings. So over the many weeks of studying this book, all this is going to come out, and we'll be able to talk about these things. If you're good note takers, you might engage in taking notes. I'm a note taker, and it has helped me, through all the years to be able to put this together and have a better sense of the Dharma. So we say that the heart center is the mind of the Buddha. We say that the voice, the speech, is the Dharma, is the speech of the Buddha. This awakened one has this speech, and it's within ourselves, and we begin to realize that we are Buddha. And through speaking, through our talking, engaging in these conversations that we have in these discussion groups like this, you begin to get a real sense that you have this wisdom within yourself, and in the right environment, all of a sudden things start connecting and things start coming out, and you may surprise yourself every now and again about, wow, I never had put that together before, but now all of a sudden I'm seeing how these things relate to each other. So you begin to make these connection points and so on. The other word was Sangha. It's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So the Sangha, S-A-N-G-H-A, the Sangha is the community of people who are on the Dharma path to become enlightened, to realize their true nature. So it's the community, it's the monastics, it's the lay people like us, it's the groups of people who come together and are learning about the Dharma, who are practicing the Dharma, and who are exchanging support for each other. So we have teachers, we have students or disciples. So a teacher has been a disciple to another teacher at some point. So now, so now a teacher has disciples now, and they, as they get more adept at being able to understand the Dharma, they take on students. They become a teacher themselves. So it's all by matter of degree. It's not like all of a sudden you become a doctor of Buddhism or something like that, but you begin to be more familiar with the whole process and so on, it's great to be able to exchange information with each other to support each other. So the Sangha is like a guide, if you will, and we're guiding each other. Sometimes, we have misconceptions and we're engaging in a conversation, and somebody in the group in the Sangha says, well, I look at it this way. And you say, oh, yeah, maybe that's a better way. I was looking at it in this other way, and maybe what they had said is a better way to look at it. I think the fundamental point is all your thoughts are valid thoughts, and they all need to be expressed, and they need to be contemplated by yourself. The Buddhism enlightenment is something that we all have to be able to recognize for ourselves. We have to develop our pathway ourselves. We have these guides to help us to do it, the books, the teachers, our Sangha members, and so on like that. Most important is our practice, that we actually spend time in meditation, and we learn how to meditate, what meditation really means. That's part of this process. So there's an academic aspect to learning all of this, learning the vocabulary, what these things mean, what the symbolism is, and so on. But then there's the practice part where you are sitting on a cushion, whether it's on the floor or a cushion, or you're sitting on a chair, whatever you're comfortable, but you're centering your energy. You're bringing all your energy together to be able to have a transcendent experience. And what that means is that you're going beyond just your physicality. You're going beyond just your intellectual capabilities, and you're going into your true essence part, your spirituality. So spirit, if you look up in the dictionary, there'll be several definitions of what spirit means or spirituality. But if you look down the list of those definitions, you might come upon where a definition for spirituality is connectedness, being connected. So to be spiritual is to have a connection not just to other human beings, but to animals, to insects, to things that we don't see that are living in the ground, the things that are in the atmosphere that are invisible to us and so on, but it's all there. And they have a lifetime to them and so on. And we say that they are all sentient beings. They are born, they're prone to sickness, they get old, and they die. Those are the four definitions of a sentient being. So whether you're a human being, whether you're an animal being, whether you're an insect being or a reptile or something like that, we're all sentient beings in that regard. And they are at some degree of realization or becoming or the embodiment of what it is to be to have this true nature, to have this ability to be awakened and so on. So we talk a lot about this, and we'll come back to that. So the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the three jewels. So this is a very important part of Buddhism, realizing this. Buddhism does not think that it is any better than any other philosophic religious system. Buddhism does have a very articulate way of being able to explain what life is, what we are doing in this life, what it is to be a human being, and how it is that we can purify ourselves and live an enlightened life. So we're already enlightened. We just don't realize it. It's blocked up. But as we remove those blockages, the light starts filling up our body, so to speak, our lifetime, so to speak, and we begin to have the ability to lead an enlightened life. So what does that mean? So we talk about virtue. We talk about wholesomeness. We talk about non-virtue. We talk about being unwholesome. We talk about the differences, our dualistic nature, that so much of what we think and believe and so on is dualistic. And what we're trying to do is to cut through that dualism to get to the essence of what truth is. And we find many interesting things. And as I was saying before, everything, all your thoughts are valid thoughts. There's something that you need to work on, to consider, to understand what the roots of those thoughts are and so on, and to be able to change your thoughts, to be able to change your mind where you realize that you've been thinking something that's incorrect, or it's non-virtuous, or it's unwholesome, or whatever, and needs to be purified. Purification is a rectification, if you will, a correction of those wrong thoughts. But they're still present, they're still around, we're still subject to them, but a wise person knows his failures or her failures, but also knows their successes. A wise person knows both of those things. If everybody just did everything perfectly all the time from the get-go, you wouldn't have a sense of what failure is. But we recognize that we are living in a confused world that has many sufferings in it. And so we have to be able to look at that straight on and be able to learn how to identify and apply the antidotes to these problems that we have. So that's a first introduction to what we're going to be doing. Does anybody have any comments or questions? And I invite this because it's important to have discussion in these groups. So if anybody has anything you'd like to say at this point, I'd love to hear what you say.
Lance, I think it would be useful either for Kunga or you to describe for anyone who's newer to some of these concepts, like how long it took for you to digest the concepts and then start taking them and be like, oh, okay, and understanding. Because I think one of the things I struggled with in the beginning was the concepts can be really heavy because there's cultural components, it's a different language. And I found it intellectually overwhelming. Like I felt like my brain was flushing. I'm like, what's Dharma? What's little d? What's big D? What's a sutra? Could you kind of maybe contextualize that and say like what's normal, what's not normal? How long does it usually take?
Got it. Yeah, I'm going to ask Kunga if he will respond. But before I do that, I just want to make one point that you just raised by saying big Dharma, little Dharma. So Dharma, the word Dharma is a Sanskrit word, and it's a pathway. So there's many different pathways. There's a pathway to be a nurse. There's a pathway to be a carpenter. There's a pathway to be any job that you can imagine. There's a pathway to be a parent and so on like that. Those are lowercase d dharmas. The capital D Dharma is the pathway to enlightenment, the pathway, the Buddha Dharma, to become a Buddha, to recognize your Buddha nature. So I just want to make that distinction. And I'd like to ask Kunga if he would respond to Czar's point. I think it was a good point.
Sure. I guess I'd say that the words are unfamiliar. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and over the years, when the literature was first being translated into English, some words they would define them, But over time, some of these words have just sort of become part of the English language, so they keep them in their original Indian Sanskrit context. So I think the Buddha, is an easier one because we know that the Buddha is a historical figure, associated with Buddhism. The first Buddhist was the Buddha. Dharma is a little bit harder. Like, why don't they just say teachings? But I think Pema Dorje is trying to point out that it can mean more than that. It's not just the teachings, but it's actually the following this path, this specific type of path. So it's to distinguish the Buddha's teachings from other teachings. And the Sangha, I think the Sangha, it's more than just your religious community. You can think of it as, because there's lots of communities you're involved with, but it's a particular type of community. It's a spiritual supportive community. But in Buddhism, it's also a community of people who are higher along on the path, who you can look to for inspiration. So, we'll talk about our people that meet with us at temple together, to come to classes together is our Sangha. But we can also talk about the Buddha as being an inspirational part of our Sangha. And we have another term, I hate the internet another term, but the Bodhisattva is like an enlightened being. And these are like people who are, even further, they're not Buddhas yet, but they're sort of there for inspiration. And we'll be learning more about those different characters in this class too. But I think it does take a while to get used to those names. I think, I don't remember how long it took me to kind of just become part of my everyday language. I think it's easier nowadays, though, because most of the books, they use those same type of words over and over. But I think that it is important to distinguish between, the Buddha as historical figure and the Buddha as, someone who inspires us on the path.
How long have you been practicing, and what did it take for you to get involved with the Dharma, with Buddhism?
I think I started practicing seriously about maybe 25 or 26 years ago. And I had a sister-in-law who had gone to some Thich Nhat Hanh retreats, and she provided me with some information. And I started to read it and become interested in it, and just started to read a lot of books. I wasn't a religious person when I was younger. My parents were Christian, but we weren't practicing Christians. My wife's Catholic, and when I started dating her, I started attending Catholic church every Sunday, and we still go to Mass every Sunday. But I never felt like Catholicism was my path, but Buddhism seemed to connect more with me. I always felt, though, it was important to have a hand in Catholicism because I felt like that's the dominant religion of our culture, and there's a lot of similarities, I think, in spiritual paths. And so, since that's the dominant Western one that I live in, I wanted to participate in that as well. I think over time, I gradually became more and more interested in the practice. I had my mother passed away, and I had to have a serious surgical procedure right about the same time, and it sort of brought to my attention that this impermanence of life, how we're all going to only have a limited time to be here, and that really kind of jump-started my spiritual practice to get me more serious into what I was doing, and to not just read about it, but actually do more serious sitting practice, meditation practice. And I don't know, is that enough, Pema Dorje?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And, I'd just like to add, I want to ask everybody a little bit about their spiritual background. So I want to go through and do that. But before I want to talk about mine just a little bit, and that is, I started meditating when I was about 24 years old. And so that was 1971, 1972, something like that. And I went to, I live in Baltimore, and there was a Sikh meditation center that I had heard about, and I went there. And I didn't know anything about Buddhism at that time, but I was interested in the Eastern philosophy, and meditation I knew was a key point there. So I learned the first meditation technique from the Sikhs. And then I continued with the meditation, and I was reading and meeting people and so on, and I continued meditating for a long time. It wasn't until I was about 50, 55 years old when I really took up the Dharma, when I really became inspired to want to understand the Dharma. And so I've been practicing, since. And I found, centers that I could go to where there were monastics, monks and nuns who had devoted their lives to teaching, practicing themselves, and so on. And that has been a great resource to be able to do that. And everybody should seek that out in your own communities and so on to make those connections. What we're doing here is to try and make it relevant to our Western experience, because these monastics, have been born and raised in India or maybe even Tibet, and have come to the West to bring teachings and so on, but they bring some of their culture with them, and they might not recognize some of our culture, and our culture has a great deal of merit to it and a great deal of value to it and so on. And, so I think that part of our job is to be able to bring that connection of the East and West more and more, and be able to see that, we're not handicapped because we were born in the West. It might be a blessing, and to be able to look at it in the Eastern terms and be able to recognize that, I think, is part of the process. Plus, there's been much more sophistication in the technology, but also in the understanding of the mind and how the technology and the mind are coming together. So to be able to have this conversation as lay people, I think, is very valid. And there are some monastics who embrace this conversation themselves. So over time, we'll invite monks, nuns to come in and be part of our group and so on. So I think that's a lot to look forward to. So let me come back to Alea. Would you mind just answering the question? What is your spiritual religious background? And if there's none, say there's none, or however you'd like to voice that. Could you tell us?
Yeah. So I guess it's been a little bit of everything in some ways. So my parents are from Guyana in South America, and in the West Indies in general. Even Kevin can probably speak to this as well. And Zara and I have had conversations about this also. I think you kind of start off more religious. So my parents grew up, I guess, like we grew up like Muslim, but my parents also grew up around like Hindus. So they also celebrated like Diwali and all those festivals. And then it used to be British. So my parents went to Catholic school and learned about Catholicism. And then, kind of brought all of that here as well. So we kind of started just celebrating everything while we were in this country as well. I was born here, but still brought those traditions along. So really had an openness just to like religion, and grew up mainly Muslim, I guess, going to the mosque. But we also went to like the mandir. And my daughter went to Catholic school because I just felt like it was important. It's something that she gravitated to as well. But then I think as a teenager, like 19, I kind of started getting a little bit away from religion and just feeling like it was some form of like separation almost. I don't know. It was just like, oh, well, you're this and somebody else is Hindu or Muslim or Catholic or Christian or Jewish. And I was like, So I felt like there was something more to just being a human being. And I didn't realize now that's just, your authentic self, that's your soul. And so it took me 20 more years to kind of realize, after going through yoga teacher training, what it is to have that union between like your big self or your higher self and your lower self, or I guess the small d and the bigger d. And then going through Ayurveda, through the holistic medicine program, I think that really gave another layer. That's when I started learning Sanskrit, and just understanding that there's a bigger picture and like a bigger calling, and like the universe really does have a plan for all of us. And then, as I've like spoken to Lance about, I also started studying Jyotish, which is Ayurvedic astrology, so Vedic astrology, and just understanding like my own birth chart. So a lot of times in school, we would talk about learning to read your own book, meaning, who are you really at your core? What is your authentic self? And I think life just teaches you sometimes that that's really where your heart lies, and where that should lead in a lot of ways. And then, like you said about the noise around the diamond of like your heart and your true center, I think it just constantly kept coming back. The same lessons kept coming back. The same, I don't know, like I feel like I've lived multiple lives in this one life. It's like I just didn't learn the lesson, and I was like, this has got to stop. I'm so tired. My soul just got tired, and I was like, okay, I've got to make a change. So I think I just realized now it's really a spiritual thing, and you just develop more of a vibe of spirituality versus something religious. So I think that's what kind of led me here. So I definitely feel like I'm on a more spiritual path, regardless of what avenue that is through, like, Hinduism or Buddhism or any type of form of religion. I think it's more following your heart and your soul. So however that kind of makes sense, that's kind of where I feel like I'm at this point. So I feel like even learning Ayurveda and kind of knowing myself, it still was like, oh, but it's just not enough. I'm just not there yet. I just don't, what's that next step? What's that next layer? How can I kind of just push through and move forward? So I think that spirituality, I think the Buddhism, actually, like studying Buddhism and understanding these practices, have given me, or will give me, the practical application of spirituality. I think that's really the point I was trying to make. Yep.
That's great. Right on. Thank you.
Yep.
Diana, could you give a little bit of your background?
Sure. So I grew up in a Catholic family, and I think I felt that it was special growing up, and I felt like it was a nice little mode of bonding between us. We had a big family, and I think I felt that it was special, and I think I kind of wanted to wire up to be like my mother, and my mother was Catholic, and she was a very good person, very kind person. So I think in our home, we spoke a lot about kindness, being kind. And so I think I associated that with being Catholic. And but then, I did not care for as I got older, in my late teens or in high school, my teen years, like Aaliyah talked about, I think my siblings and I started drifting away from it. I think that I didn't care for, going to church. Probably I didn't want to get up early on Sundays, but also there's just a lot of focus on sin and shame and guilt. But I didn't really feel guilty. I didn't really walk around feeling like a sinner at all. But we just kept hearing about that, and then so it was I felt conflicted about it. So I really didn't, in my 20s, I didn't seek out religion, or even when I raised my daughter, I felt a little bit bad about that I didn't offer her exposure, a foundation of religion or something that she could fall back on in life. But then after she went to college, I kind of explored some churches, and I really enjoyed the Unity Church in Gaithersburg. I don't think they call it a church though, but the Unity congregation, that was more spiritual, and they talked about God as being the light inside of you, and you shine it out, and then it reflects back on you. I could get behind what they were talking about, the Unity, and it did that for a couple of years. I also kind of had some experience with A Course in Miracles that I thought was nice. But I would say right now, I'm going to retire from working this summer, and I'm fearful of the silence, of quieting my mind. And I think I have a feeling this might lead me to learning how not to be afraid to have a quiet mind, and just, that it could do some good for me.
Really good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Kevin, could you speak a little bit about your background?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate it. So I was born and raised in the Caribbean island of Trinidad and Tobago, which is very near to Guyana. And collectively, the Caribbean islands, together with Guyana, we're also known as the West Indies. And if you're a big cricket fan, you would be aware of that. So I was born and raised there, and like similar to what Aaliyah mentioned earlier on, I grew up in an Islamic religion, but my environment was pretty much Catholicism because I went to a Catholic school, and I had friends who were Hindus, and we celebrated Diwali, and we had a national holiday for Diwali, as well as people of other faiths as well. The turning point for me was when my mom passed away when I was 17, and I kind of diverged away from both religions, and I seeked out something that was more appealing to how their perspective on death and life and living, and that's when I diverged away from religion itself. And similar to Diane, my mom introduced me to, right before she passed, to Silent Unity. So I was very much connected to that, and I love their form of meditation, because at every session when you go to church on a Sunday, and or whenever you go to church, they focus on meditation, on meditating, and that's their way of kind of bridging the Eastern and Western philosophies together. And up until today, I love meditating. I love staying calm and just taking some deep breaths and just enjoying that moment. It's helped me a lot. It's keeping me grounded, bringing me back, helping me to refocus and regroup on my own. So I've been very fortunate because I was introduced to meditation at a very young age, and I've been practicing it my whole life, at various moments, in and out. And I really, really enjoy seeing how I have evolved as a person in terms of my thinking and my meditation and my way of living. So, and yeah, that's why I'm here today, to learn some more and more perspectives and philosophies, and to evolve even more.
Great. Thank you very much. That was very good. Nick, would you mind commenting on your background?
Yes. As in, no, I would not mind. I was raised in my parents' household without religion, but I would visit my grandma every week, and she would teach me about Christianity and teach me about the Bible. And it was a bit sneaky. It was like, we don't talk about this around your parents. We don't pray around your parents and all this. And I felt the truth in what she was sharing with me from these words from who I believe to be an enlightened master. And I could also feel the separation from it, and even just through it not being something to hide from my parents and all this. And so I never considered myself a Christian. And in high school, I began to be more and more interested in meditation, and I began to meditate. And I also began to learn about Buddhism mostly through books. And there was always just something that struck me about it. You mentioned, Lance, the language and the like very, like it has a precision in its language. And since then, in this last year, I've committed to deepening that practice, and have been doing that through an online course that is through Samye Institute out in New York, which it sounds like you're from out east somewhere, this group of people. And yeah, just continuing to learn, and I've found especially learning orally from people and in person has been particularly valuable, and helps go beyond the books for me. So
Very good, thank you. And Zara, would you give a brief background on your experience?
Yeah, I feel like I'm like with Aaliyah and Kevin. So my dad's Muslim. He immigrated from Iran. He's, from a highly Islamic, obviously, background. My mom is from the United States, so Southern Baptist Christian. And I was raised with both, similar to Aaliyah and Kevin. It was just right. It was all like celebrating all the stuff. And and being in the United States. And so I got to a point just with my dad's was in the military, so I got to be literally experientially in highly Buddhist countries like Japan, which is typically Zen Buddhism. So very young age, I was seeing all these other ways people lived because my dad's military background, Lance. And I became just very curious, and I looked at my parents one day and I said, there's all this fighting over these religions. You're right, you're wrong. Jesus is so and so. I said, there's got to be something else. And so I just started asking these big abstract questions, Lance, at 18. I never meditated before Lance. Lance is the first time I was like, meditation. Like, I never had any curiosity about meditation for any kind of emotional regulation or anything like that. I just was like, what's next? I was like, why am I here? It's these really big abstract questions. And naturally, one thing I will say is, Lance, and to all of you, I was always inclined to images of the Buddha. Like, it was just like, there was something just like, oh, I'm home. Like, not that I disrespect my dad's religion or my mom's, but the Prophet Muhammad, the pathway of Islam as a pathway back to God consciousness, or the pathway through Jesus as the pathway back to God consciousness, did not resonate with me, Lance. It was when I saw images of the Buddha, I was like, oh, you are familiar. And I was just like, oh, I remember you from some iteration, my consciousness a couple bodies ago. And I was like, I feel certain. I was like, kept trying to, and then when I met you, Lance, it sort of was like, aha, it was like there was a 20-year gap where I had to like make a career, like all the stuff. You have to go get the degree, have the kids, you get off course, and then your mind heart comes back and these images come back. And then when you're ready, the teacher appears, and Lance is my teacher. And I just remembered, I was like, oh, remember this from 20 years ago, get back on the path. And so that's where I am. I guess that's my journey. Nothing jolting happened to me. There was not a major life event. And I humbly say this, I believe I'm picking up where I left off in a previous vessel. Like I'm saying that with humility after 5 years of trying to understand Buddhism. Like, what does it mean to call yourself a Buddhist? What does it mean in action, conceptually? And I feel certain I was on a Buddhist pathway in a very previous iteration of this. Like, the Buddhism just feels like home. So I feel like I'm back home, Lance.
Well, great. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Zara. And the common thread that I pick up, from everybody was, the word spirituality. And that's that connection point that no matter where we came from, a Christian background, a Muslim background, a Jewish background, whatever, there was that connection of a spirit, that there's something within ourselves and so on. So trying to identify that is what we're talking about, and it brings that Buddhism is not a religion. So if we define religion, if you look that up in a dictionary, one of the definitions of religion is going to be man's relationship to a supreme being. someone who is a creator, etc. Buddhism is not a religion. It doesn't speak about a supreme being. It doesn't speak about a creator. It speaks about a philosophy of the self, of learning about the self, and what the self is and what the self is not. So it reveals itself, and you can use that revelation in terms of whatever religious background you have, or if you want to explore it in terms of other religions that you haven't looked at before. So in other words, Buddhism can make you a better Catholic, can make you a better Muslim, can make you a better Christian, a better Hindu, or something like that, because you're learning of yourself and what yourself is not in the context of these worldly traditions. Another thing that will come to pass, that you will come to realize, that all this are appearances. Everything is, we think of with our mind. We're processing with our mind. So our mind has a bias to it. And we're learning to recognize those biases of the mind and so on, and see that everything that we witness, everything that we observe, everything that we partake of is our interpretation of what this is. So coming to grips with what this is a very important part of the Dharma process. And it is a process. And it takes, Zara asked the question a little while ago, how long does this take? Well, it takes a very long time, but it's relative. Time is relative, and it's relative to our experience, to our causes and our conditions. So in other words, somebody might be born into a situation where at 5 years old, he seems like a very old person, very wise, very all-knowing and something like that. You may find that some people may not be, until they're 55 years old, start taking on those times. And before that, they're very childish or something like that, that they're not very sophisticated. So Kevin put his hand up, so I'm going to let him speak. What's on your mind, Kevin?
Oh, no, I feel the same way in the sense that, and I kind of relate with what you were saying. And I am very spiritual, and I can go to a mosque, I can go to a church, I can go wherever, because I know who I am, and I respect people, as they say, to each is their own. So wherever they go, whatever they do, that's understandable. But I know who I am and what I'm doing, because I enjoy at the end of the day, you're praying, which is another form of meditation. And I although I grew up in Islam, I still love hearing their Arabic prayers, and still being around their customs as it is. But doesn't mean I don't practice their practices, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to chime in there because I'm still involved. I can go anywhere, and I love Christmas. I love the time of celebration and what it does. So I love things like that. So I just wanted to chime in, as you mentioned, it's how Buddhism is not a religion and it's spiritual, and you can be a better religious person through the form of Buddhism. So thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yes, that's very good. And one of the qualities, I think, of being a spiritual person is their joy, and being able to recognize not only your joy but the joy in other people, and also to recognize the lack of joy in other people or in yourself, and to come to grips with that. To understand, why certain people might be unhappy about certain things, or why you might be unhappy with certain things. So dealing with joy is a very integral part of what we do. So you'll find that the wisdom in the Buddhism is incredible, and much of what is being studied today in psychology, psychiatry, whatever, has roots in Buddhism. So you'll find that, as well as physics, physical sciences, and quantum physics and things like that have their roots in Buddhism. And there's a lot of work that goes on. There's institutes that have been created and different kinds of societies that have come together of the East and the West, where they're expressing these things in Western terms and in Eastern terms and Western scientific terms and in Eastern scientific terms of the mind. So it's all very interesting. And we touch on all those things. We look at all those things. I've got one housekeeping thing I got to ask, and that is, I usually, when we have these meetings, we usually make them 2 hours, 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. But we discussed that maybe that's a little bit long, and maybe we should end at 8:30. But if we're engaged in a good conversation, do we let the conversation go rather than chop it off at 8:30 and say we're done, but to let it go until 9 o'clock, and that becomes our hard time. So I would just like to poll everybody now and ask, how do you feel about that? Do you think that 8:30 is a good time to stop, or 9 o'clock is a good time to stop? So let me start with Kevin. You've got your hand up already. Kevin, if you can tell me what your opinion is.
My hand was up from the previous, so
Right.
I need to take it down.
I
So
took
thanks
it down.
for reminding me to do that.
Yeah.
I like the ending at 8:30 because I'm trying to go to bed a little earlier and all that stuff. But if the conversation is very intriguing, I don't mind staying on and extending that. So that's my opinion.
Okay.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to vote.
Certainly. Konga, how about you?
I'm happy with whatever the group decides.
Okay. Diana, how about you?
I would favor 8:30, and then when there's something interesting to stay longer, I would like that.
Okay, thank you. Zara, how about you?
Whatever. I'm gonna go with the flow, flexibility.
Okay. Nick, how about you?
My my preference is 8:30 as well, but if it's juicy, I want to keep sipping.
Okay. Good. And Alea, how about you?
8:30 is good for me. And I'm okay with like the option maybe to drop off at 8:30 and the group can still continue to 9 if they want to. Yeah, so I'm okay with that.
Okay. Well, then we'll go with the consensus here that 8:30 is going to be a better time. So, being a moderator, if you will, of this, it's part of my job to be able to keep things, in that proper flow, because there is a beginning, there is a middle part, and there is an end. So if we know we have a time constraint, we need to accomplish those 3 things within that time constraint. So the beginning is when we recite motivational prayers. So we're going to do one in just a moment, and because it sets our intention and it's separating us from all the stuff that we've been doing all day long and so on, and then refocusing ourselves in terms of what this discussion group is about. And learning the Dharma is the focus that I'm talking about. Then we do that introduction. Then we come and we do the main part of the time of the discussion, which is learning a teaching, hearing a teaching about a particular topic, and having discussion about it and so on. So that can be 60 minutes all by itself, real easy, like that. And then at the end, we will do a dedication. And the dedication may be something new that you're unfamiliar with, because what we're doing is we're changing our minds. We're all going to hear something. We're all going to think of something that is going to be a change in our lives, a change in what we thought it was. And as we do that, we are gaining a merit. Because we're able to make that change, we want to hold on to that. We want to say, oh, wow, we said something tonight that really makes me a better person. And ain't I great? This is wonderful. I feel so good. and I'm going to share that with everybody, that I'm so good. We hold on to that merit as our own. Well, that's false, and that's a problem, because one of the things that we're coming to deal with is our ego. And the ego is the ring in our nose that has made us do all these things that, we may have some kind of unhappiness about now. And we'd like to change a lot of those things, or we'd like to amplify some of those things. We want to purify what those things are that has been motivational to us. So what we do is this dedication where whatever motivation, or rather whatever merit we have gained, whatever insight has gone off in our minds, we're dedicating that to the enlightenment of all other beings. We're not holding on to it for ourselves. We're letting it go, and we're sharing it with other beings. Otherwise, if we didn't do that and we go out thinking how great I am, and I go get in my car and I start driving down the street and somebody cuts me off and I start yelling and screaming at them in the car, I've just pulled the rug from underneath all that merit that I think I gained. I just blew it away. But if we seal it, if we seal that merit before we've had an opportunity to lose it for our unpurified behavior, we seal it and we're giving it to other beings. So all these things, these three things, are mindfulness. And that's what we're developing, is a mindfulness of a process of purification, of living an enlightened life, and so on. So this is a theme that we come back to over and over again. So I'll just point this out to you. So having this time, setting ourselves up for an hour and a half meeting is fine. But we just want to be able to fit these things in. And if we go beyond the 8:30 time, and we still have dedication to do. So you need to recall that. And if you're going to sign off yourself, if you're going to go off yourself, if you've got our prayer book, then there are dedication prayers in here that you can recite for yourself, so that you're dedicating yourself without the group, but you need to do it for yourself. So bringing this kind of structure into your life is a very important part of the Dharma teaching and the Dharma practice, is discipline. And knowing that there's a structure, there's a planned organization to be able to do this, and you apply it to your life and so on. Anybody have any comments about that?
Lance, actually, I just had a light bulb moment listening to you. So I want to make sure I recap this correctly. So it's the three parts. It's the opening prayers, whatever the action is, whether it's a discussion or whatever action verbs you're doing, and then the closing. And the reason you close is to gain the merit before you engage in a
No, you've already gained the merit. You're dedicating the merit to others.
Okay, but
you're not holding the merit. You're not holding the merit for yourself.
Okay, and then you do that closing to dedicate, so it's sealed before you have the opportunity to engage in a non-optimal action outside of that safe space, so that the merit counts towards liberation. Okay, I had never understood that completely. I'm so glad you just summarized that, because hearing it, I probably have heard it, but I'm so grateful that you just put it succinctly like that. So I'll be sure to be very thoughtful from now on about when I'm intentionally engaging in Dharma practice. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So now I'm going to screen share something with you all. And this is a page out of our this prayer book that I want to be able to share with everyone. So this is actually the first prayer that we generally recite. But tonight, for the sake of this meeting, we're going to use it for our our motivation and our dedication. So you can see that every prayers in here, this is Tibetan language, this is the Tibetan fonts and so on. And then this part here is the English transliteration of the Tibetan, of the prayer. These prayers are way over 1,000 years old. They might be 2,000 years old, and they've been handed down, from teacher to teacher to disciple, etc., and passed on because of their great profundity in being able to create mindfulness in our lives and so on. So they're very, very important. And we repeat these prayers 3 times. The first time we recite the prayer is just to recite the words, to be able to get the outer meaning of the words, the way you pronounce them, and so on. The second one is an inner meaning, the meaning that the teacher relates to you and tells you about, well, this is, in this context, this is what this means, and so on. And then the third recitation is the recitation of what it means to you, what your personal relationship with that prayer is. So it's very, how do we say it? There's a commitment there to be able to do this, and the more that we do it, the richer the commitment becomes, and the more natural the commitment becomes. So the last part here is the English translation. So learning it in your native language, whatever that language is, Spanish, English, French, whatever, it's important to know it intellectually through your own language. But as we begin to recite it through the Sanskrit or the Tibetan language, we are keeping the vibration, because the vibration has never been lost. That energy has never been lost from 2,600 years ago. The Buddha taught in Sanskrit language. So he was verbalizing this, and this energy waves of vibration have been moving throughout this whole world all these years and so on. And whenever anybody recites it in that, you're like tuning in to that radio station, if you will. It wasn't born, it never dies. And we're tuning into it. So it's a way of tuning in your heart, that heart mind. The intellectual mind is tuned in by your native language, but the spiritual heart is tuned in through the recitation of this language, of this vibration. So this prayer is the altruistic motivation. So altruism, as you might know, is has to do with doing things for the benefit of our brothers and sisters. So this is our prime motivation. Everything we do is for the benefit of others. We're trying to overcome our ego by dedicating everything to all beings and so on. So this prayer here, so if you will recite this out loud with me, and this is in the book that I want to send you, so you can practice this on your own. But so if you'll recite this with me 3 times. All mothers, sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Again, all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. I'm going to recite this now in Tibetan. Dagla dangwa je pe dra no pa je pe ge. Tar pa dang tam she ken pe bar du jo pa je pa tam she ki so je pe. Manam kadam am pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den. Dug now dang drel nor du la na me pa yang dag par zog pe zhang ju brin po she to pa ja. So we'll go over this again another time, but just to all mother sentient beings. So we talked about all sentient beings that are born, get sick, that that get old and die. All those sufferings are what sentient beings experience. And if we regard all these beings as our mother, and how we would want to treat our mother, that we have a compassion for all these beings, for their suffering and so on, just as we would have for our mother. Or maybe it was our caretaker. Maybe it was our father. Maybe it was an uncle or an aunt, or it was our grandparents, whoever raised us, whoever made great sacrifices for our benefit when we were young, when we were just born and so on. So all mother sentient beings, but especially those enemies who hate me and obstructors who harm me, those who are creating me difficulties, those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. Omniscience, omniscience. Omni means all, and science, psi, means knowing, all knowing, to liberation and unknowing. All those beings who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, I am dedicating this prayer. I'm motivated to continue in my practice for the benefit of these beings. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. So this is our dedication. This is our motivation. Buddhahood is this awakeness. Imagine if the world was full of awakened people who had virtue as their prime motivation, as their root cause for their life. What is their purpose? For virtue, for the benefit of other beings. If everybody did that, we wouldn't have wars, we wouldn't have pestilence, we wouldn't have famine, we would be looking out and taking care of each other. Mm-hmm. Does anybody have any comments or questions about this? Okay. All right, so then let me see, I need to... So is this appearing like it might be helpful to you, to everyone?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, very
Yes, for me. Thanks.
Yes.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you. All right, so let me hear about your shipping addresses and your phone numbers so I can contact you. It's convenient to be able to text and to email. And so we're up to date with things and get reminders and so on. And if you know any of the people who said they were going to be present here but weren't present, if you want to give them a buzz and say, hey, I thought you wanted to join our group, would be wonderful. So a little nudge. So thank you to Aaliyah for, she was huge in putting this all together because she sent out the messages and people were responding about this. So thank you, Aaliyah, for doing that. And of course, our grandmother is Zara, who we all give thanks to for being the progenitor of all of this. and to Brother Kunga, and I know that Diana and Nicholas and Kevin will all become fast friends and Dharma brothers and sisters. So thank you. There's one more thing. Om, Ah, Hong. Om, Ah, Hong. Om, Ah, Hong. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you. I look forward to
Thank you very much, Lance.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
everyone.
Thank
So
you, Lance.
wonderful to meet you and hear your stories.
Thank you.
Kevin. Good night, all.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good
See
night.
you next week. All right. Bye-bye.